Hi, this is Stephen Shields and I'm joined here today by Brendan Muldowney, the director of Savage and Love Eternal, Ciarán Foy, the director of Citadel, Conor McMahon, the director of Dead Meat, Stitches and the critically acclaimed Zombie Bashers web series, and Conor Barry, the producer of Circus Fantastica, Savage and Love Eternal. How are you doing, lads? Good. So basically this whole podcast is just to talk about your careers and film in general, and the first question of this show, just to get ball rolling, is why you get into film in the first place? What made you want to be filmmakers? Conor.
God, well, we just had a video camera at home, you know, you just get one for the communions and stuff. So we just kind of nicked that. The parents had it for the communions, and then, so yeah, we just make films, you know, we just be messing around the house, you know.
Yeah.
I had 2 brothers, 3 sisters, so I had this like massive cast that I could use. And so we used to just, that's what we used to just run around, like, beat each other up, fight, and just film it and stuff, and then, you know, that's kind of how it started, yeah.
What type of camera was it?
I think it was a Panasonic or something.
But like what sort of format? What type?
Oh, it was like do you remember it was like
little tapes you put into a big VHS.
Yeah, and you used to go and we used to call it the Expanditron. We never knew what it was called. So when we were kids, we just go, where's the Expanditron? We need it. But yeah.
And you usually do like in-camera editing all the time, like kind of pause it just.
Yeah, all the first films were in-camera editing, so we used to do like if we want to do a martial arts scene, we used to like watch a Jackie Chan film and we'd break the fight into just like 3-second bits. So if he punched and he reacted, we'd do that little bit, then we'd do the next bit, and we'd just be copying off the TV. We'd do it in little 3-second bits, and then when you put it all together, it looked like we could actually do martial arts.
And you did Shakespeare as well, because I remember watching one of them. Didn't you do one they called Shakespeare play?
We did Othello, yeah, but we added in there's some extra sword fight scenes that don't appear in the the original. Yeah.
What about yourself, Ciarán?
Why or what?
Why? I know, like, probably watching films made you want to be a filmmaker. What kind of drove you? Like, what were your films growing up? You said, Jesus.
Well, the first I was taken by my dad to see Return of the Jedi, and I was 5. And I don't know how, but I knew everyone's name on the screen. I don't know whether it was from collecting the toys beforehand or whatever, but that had a huge impact on me because it was the first time I'd seen something on a screen that big, and it was a completely different world. And so yeah, growing up, I suppose beside my parents, I was raised by Spielberg and Zemeckis and Lucas, and
The big
then
names.
later graduated onto James Cameron, and that period sort of, you know, as I was sort of 8, 9 and 10 of Predator and Aliens and Terminator, and so all genre films. And that's kind of never gone away. So I kind of always wanted to be a filmmaker, really.
Dope.
Were you making films like Conor, or writing scripts or anything, or just?
I didn't get a video camera until I was 15.
I was about the same, that 14, yeah.
Okay, right. And at that it wasn't mine. So yeah, I was making. To be honest, back then when I was 14, 15, I really just wanted to get into special effects. You know, because Jurassic Park had just come out, and I had saved up and bought this big book about ILM, and that's really what I wanted to get into. And so the first things I did with a video camera were just like little special effects shots. And then I slowly started to realise that actually the special effects guys don't get to say what sort of effects they do.
What sort of special effects could you do?
Just like little models and
with first perspective, or no?
Yeah, I did a little bit of that.
Yeah.
You know, I bought sort of Star Trek or Star Wars kits, and
Yeah, I was doing Star Wars. I was convinced I could make Star Wars in my back garden, and I was like, it would be as
Adam
good.
and Joe
Yeah.
did. Do you remember that show, Adam and Joe? And they used to.
yeah.
But like, I built an X-wing like cockpit thing, you know, and then I had a model X-wing and painted a football like the Death Star. All I could reconstruct Star Wars. It was terrible. And it was like Darth Vader's mask was like a bucket, and then like painted the front of it like you know those plastic milk cartons.
Yeah.
Painted it black.
Yeah.
And did you actually like wear the helmet yourself, or was it?
I think my little sister like.
Just walking around.
Darth Vader. Like,
Yeah. It's just stuff like that, or get somebody stand in front of the camera and pause it, and then got them to duck inside their jumper, and I had a balloon filled with blood at the top, and I throw a dart at it and film that, and it looked like a head blown up, and but no stories.
Yeah.
You know, and then
Set pieces.
Yeah. And then little by little I started to write little scripts, and and make stories, and then just when I was about 17, 18, making the first little crappy shorts.
There is something about that first time you put two shots together, and it's just like, do you know what I mean? And it creates something that wasn't there. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. It's something I missed though today is, I think we were talking about this not too long ago, was just the sense of fun that you had making films back then. And sometimes you couldn't lose sight of that when you in the cloud of making a living, or sort of dealing with the whole business side of things, or just the stress of trying to get something off the ground. Is that just that sense of what got you there in the first place?
And you didn't even know what you were doing. Like, that was the exciting thing as well. And it's now you almost have to know everything in advance. You know what I mean? Because it's almost like that room of just figuring out as you're doing it sometimes is gone.
There's just so much money at stake.
Kind of the only time really you have full control of something really as well, isn't it? Like it's you, a camera, do whatever you want.
Absolutely, yeah. You didn't have your parents coming along with a bunch of notes. Going, I think you need to lose that shot.
That would be kind of a weird family to go.
You're not casting your brother, you're casting your sister. It's a much better act.
Changing the main character completely. What about yourself, Brendan?
Well, it's interesting talking to the guys because I'm older, so the video cameras didn't come around till I was nearly starting my first communications course that I did. So really, I went to see Star Wars when I was 7, and I remember the thing at the time was you'd go with people's birthdays, and the big competition in the class was, I've seen it fucking 14 times. I've seen but I don't know. It was Star Wars did blow things open because I can't really remember it now, but I know that we were all gobsmacked by it, and we went to see it a lot of times. But it's a strange thing because you just enjoy it. Everyone enjoyed it. I wasn't sort of thinking of making films. I was just enjoying it. But I don't know. I'm trying to think. But I suppose the clearest thing I can say to you is that I always loved stories. So we watched. A Hammer House of Horrors when we were young, when I was very young, and it terrified myself and my brother. So we used to then be at night not sleeping. So we were banned from watching horror films, and I would come into school the next day, and everyone would have seen, say, Salem's Lot, and they would describe it beat by beat for me, And so in my head, I was living the film. I was making the films in my head, and then I would be writing essays in secondary school. I remember, and they would be literally Salem's Lot, but I'd never seen it, but they would be So in a way maybe it was just a storytelling sort of thing that I suppose the first thing that when I thought why our filmmaking might be a possibility was years later I saw, funnily enough, The Wicker Man, and I don't know what it was, but it was like a different type of thing. It wasn't just entertainment. It seemed to me like there was something else going on. And I remember thinking, okay, I don't know how it's a slow thing. You just sort of what I ended up doing was going to England to try and get into one of the editing houses or something. That didn't work, and then what did I do? I just got a video camera and made some shitty sort of music video that was nearly a copy of. There was a Smithwick's ad out at the time, and it was shot at night, and it was just all grainy footage, and I was trying to copy this and sent that into a communications course, but so I can't really give you a clear path into how I did it. It was sort of slowly over the years.
It just seems like you were telling everyone Star Wars is kind of a big influence on people. It's just one of those films I think does that to people.
Well, somebody once said to me that people tend to, when they're talking about their inspiration, tends to break down into sort of Star Wars or Kess.
Do
you know what I mean? It's like
people
people sort of go the more sort of arty indie route or Star Wars. But what I find fascinating is the idea that people who would have found their love of cinema or had those first experiences from Star Wars or E.T. or Back to the Future, how they sort of grow out of that to the point that it's seen as
it's just like a childish thing.
Yeah, exactly, and it's about some obscure film from the Czech Republic, from or whatever. So it's
well, your taste does it evolves no matter what genre you go into. It's sort of, and you get exposed to more things. But it's strange because Star Wars was the big thing, but why didn't everyone else in my class who was just as enamored with Star Wars, we were all drawing stormtroopers and all, but like why didn't they all go into film?
Well, it was weird to me because I got into Star Wars when I was like much later, when I was like 15 or 16. Like I'd seen it when I was a kid, but I never saw it in cinema or anything like that. But like I got into Star Wars when I was 16, when everyone had grown out of it. So I used to go around getting all their toys that they'd like thrown up in the attic, and you know what I mean. So it was almost like when I was in school, I was the only one into Star Wars because I was older. Like I was like 16, 17, and into Star Wars. But
see, my experience of Star Wars is something completely different because I only ever saw the remastered versions first. So I saw first with all of the special effects and I, even though they're good films, when I watched the originals, I just found them more interesting. There was something about them, something more simpler or something like that. They didn't need all that kind of, let's just throw a spaceship in there for no apparent reason. It was just like, it was nearly kind of like George Lucas was making film, but they weren't overly complicated. They were just puppets and backdrops, and so maybe that's kind of something that it's just they are kind of simple films. What about yourself, Conor? What got you?
Well, besides like listening to everyone talk about their family studios, I was like going over to Ciarán trying to persuade him to do his film for his pocket money in 3 weeks' time. but I might pay him in 3 weeks' time. But I come from a completely different background. It's actually frighteningly different. Like I wouldn't have seen Star Wars when I was a kid. My big thing was there used to be a thing on RTÉ2 called Cine Club. And Cine Club was where they used to play the foreign language subtitle films. And I was obsessed with this because it was just, for the first time, it was absolutely and totally exotic. You know, you had all these stories taking place in a different language. It was just somewhere else entirely. And you never really fully understood what was going on. One of my earliest cinematic memories is of this. It must have been a Tarkovsky film, but I've never actually seen the film. I'd love to know what it was, but it opens, and anyone who ever listens to this podcast, maybe they come in. But it opens with this huge. It's got this orange, black, and white hue, and opens with this colossal Russian Navy hovercraft, just slowly emerging out of the dark, out of this mist, and these scientists get out of it, and it's like bad shit from the word go. And it was just so strange and so difficult and so weird, and that's where I kind of come from, and then it was just always very, very different and unusual, and that's what I associate cinema with.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of the things that I like about working with Conor is that he brings this whole new, like I'm educated nearly a lot of the time, you know, especially when Conor used to work in Laser, the video shop. But yeah, I used to love it. Like I was constantly getting new films that I wouldn't watch. I wouldn't be exposed to.
And that's the thing. But then again, you know, I mean, as well as that, funnily enough, literature would have played a big part with things as well. Bizarrely, like, you know, I was obsessed with Robert Louis Stevenson. I just thought he was the man.
Right.
And Treasure Island, they are basically movies. They're scripts. You know, you read Treasure Island and the story and everything like that. And I think so. There is that. Like we're always chasing that kind of adventure and exotic kind of approach as well in cinema. So, but that's I suppose that's where the love of film came from, bizarrely, from weird Russian films and.
Did you watch that one, Kez? Did you?
I wasn't a big fan of Kez.
Actually, interested to know what that film is now. That's kind of like someone's gonna go, hopefully listen to this and then go, I saw that film too, but I don't know the name of it.
Like I said, it was a baby threatening manner.
It sure wasn't like the Russian version of Star Wars.
Probably was.
That's it.
Probably was.
It was like the Russian version of Star Wars. The little robot was just a dustbin and they pushed it out. They're like, oh, that's quite interesting. So, like, obviously you all went to film school and all that stuff. Like, and I just want to kind of talk about like the writing, because everyone seems to have a writing background sitting at the table. So I was just going to say, like, what is the kind of, do you find it, would you be more interested now in still writing your own films, or would you be interested in just getting good scripts in now? Like, where are you with that kind of thing?
Well, I always wrote to direct, if that makes any sense. you know, and I don't enjoy the writing process at all. I do it, and you know, but it's I find it incredibly lonely experience, and I just feel much more alive on a set, collaborating with people and collaborating with artists and actors and all that kind of stuff. So that's really, you know, I'd like to continue to have some sort of an input, but I'm always on the lookout for a cool script that I can either take as is or do a kind of director's polish with the writer.
Yeah, I think that's a big thing as well, as a lot of directors take scripts now, because I was listening to a podcast with David Russell just did American Hustle, and he took the script and just put bits in of himself, and I think that's a big thing. I think no one takes the script and just says, alright, I'm just going to shoot what's on the page. I think that's a big thing that's gone out the window now.
Unless you're an amazing writer,
yeah.
You know, but I just never found a writer that, you know, certainly when I was starting out, that you know.
Yeah, well, we're just a tiny country, like,
Yeah.
scripts are short on the ground, so you have to. But I think it is important to understand your limitations. Do you know, in a way that, like, we all write. I'd say admit myself that I'm not the best writer in the world.
Yeah, me neither.
You know,
like,
I try my best.
For future job opportunities, I'm going to say I'm good.
No, but I'm the same. Like, I purely write because no one's handing me scripts.
Yeah, it's
like,
tough because they're not. Yeah.
You know, so it's purely out of necessity, or like, well, if I want to direct, I have to write something.
Yeah.
But I'd be the same, man. I'd love to get a script. It's like a year of my life that I don't have to
sit down.
And it's like.
Well, what about coming up with, you know, a concept or an idea? I mean, I wouldn't say we're all, bad at that. I'm not saying we're bad writers, but it's, you know.
You like just finding those people though to carry out that idea,
which is tough as well.
Like sometimes what happens, I've found sometimes that you can, it's a tricky thing, because if you do it too early, you're almost doing it out of laziness, and the thing becomes something else. Like, do you know what I mean? Like sometimes if you get another writer on board, they'll write the film they want to write, which sometimes isn't necessarily the film you want to make.
Which is I know, and I suppose I do understand that to really take ownership of something, you nearly need to be feeling it under your skin. Do you know what I mean? So it's tough to just hire someone to.
Yeah.
Like, it's hard to, like, I've written 6 feature films. One of them was made, but I've just finished writing one that I inherited, so to speak, from 2 other writers, and that's coming off the back of them developing it for 5 years. So I've kind of been given this present of 5 years, and I've done the draft, and it has been I've enjoyed it the most. You know,
because you've got good material and you're just honing it.
Yeah.
It must be just because it's what you're saying, and because of Love Eternal, that's from an adaptation of a book. Like, that can't be easy. I couldn't imagine. I've never attempted it myself. Like, that's like a whole thing.
Do you know what? I actually prefer. That's when I feel, because then the material is there, and I think it depends. I mean, Love Eternal wasn't the most comprehensive book, with but I do enjoy the idea of. I've tried it again since recently. With a sort of real story, that I find that actually more enjoyable sometimes. Because when you're sort of rudderless and you don't know where you're going, you can end up falling into script editing traps of they lost a child, and they need a backstory. They've lost a child, and I'm not saying that's a bad. You know what I'm talking about, where you start jamming crap into it just because it's nearly. And some of my favourite films recently are the ones that are really simple, straight line stuff. They don't have all the.
I know I'm the producer here, and kind of, maybe I've become a bit obsessive about the idea of concepts and the idea of worlds and settings. And you go, wouldn't that be cool if it was this, or if you that, and then you're kind of, if you're not seeing that out there, you're kind of trying to maybe artificially corral things into these settings. And I do think though that sometimes there's another energy that can come off watching. Well, essentially I come from things from the punter point of view. It's like. There's someone who's really clever and they can see something that no one else can see, and it's like, would it be great if we all were able to have a chance to get a glimpse at this?
Yeah.
That's where I come from. And so so maybe it's a bit fantasy football sometimes. You kind of like, oh, put this writer with that writer and see what like, you know, what happens. And in a kind of in my head, you're kind of going, wow, it would be really interesting to see a bit of this with a bit of that and a bit of sprinkle the other. And in practice, it sounds like it's the hardest thing in the entire world to actually get done. But you know, it's one of the most intriguing things for me now, this idea of collaborative writing, you know. And is it something, you know, the idea of people who can take on material from somebody else or design stuff to be taken over by somebody else, or get the most out of themselves from working with somebody else. And I'm not, you know, at the same time, like, I'm all about like one person knowing their material inside out and bringing something that no one else can do with that as well. But I just find it really intriguing, and I wonder, I'd thrown out the question, like, is there a sense that, no, it's mine, I wouldn't trust other people, or what? Who's got the no or the yes on things?
I think well, for me, it's really, you just like, it's that whole thing. It's like tricky to know. Do you know? Because like, okay, say I've got an idea, right? Like, I can't realistically give it to one writer. He comes back something, no. Try another writer, comes back, no. I'll try you. Perfect. Like, so you kind of have to start going, Like, and how do you know if there's if you haven't worked with them before? And so then you end up like not doing anything, which is probably the bad thing to do. Yeah. But it's just, how do you, you know what I mean? How do you do?
Well, it's what's happening more and more, which I think is kind of frightening, is this idea of exactly that, of studios and the like sort of getting a writer to do a pass of something, and rather than giving that writer notes and allowing him the chance to correct it or come back with new stuff, they get rid of him. And they replace him with another writer, and you're kind of echoing that in the editing stage, where, you know, the first pass of the edit is, okay, we have a few notes, but clearly this editor's not right. So let's replace him with somebody else, and which I don't, you know, it's kind of sort of missing the point of, it's almost like, I don't know, like looking at the dailies of a director after the first day and saying, let's try somebody else for day two, you know, you know, or not allowing the chance of
does happen.
Evolution.
I've heard stories just from like film about people, like directors coming in the first day, they look at the days and they want, you're out the door.
I remember once I used to play for a football team, and the coach didn't show up, so I had to coach the team, and I spent every time someone did something wrong or I didn't like, I moved them to a different position. And I think we lost 17-3. And because like,
but that's a great analogy, do you know what I mean, of exactly what's happening. I think, you know, you have these scripts that are essentially sort of written by committee, and
I suppose, you know, like, I talk about mountaineering being you know, a lonely sport. You know, there's some disciplines that are essentially all about one person and trust with that one person, and like coming back to Robert Louis Stevenson, it's not Robert Louis Stevenson and or whoever. And you talk about, like, you see all the script writing legends that are around. We know them as one name. We don't, you know. I think Billy Wilder and his we can't remember the names of who his collaborator is. He's one of the few guys who used to have that thing going on. And I suppose I still ask the question: is it just that?
Sorry. But like, is it as well? I mean, what stops me sometimes as well is the fact that, right, if I know, say, I'm going to submit something to the film board, and if you're asking to collaborate a writer, you're basically asking them to work for free for a while, which is often the thing that would stop you going for a certain. Do you know what I mean? You kind of like it's a bit of an ask, but I suppose. You know what I mean? You'd like to go, oh, we've got some development money, now go for a writer. But I don't know if, like, maybe I just don't know enough writers. Maybe writers are...
Well, why do you say they have to work for free? I mean, surely you can get a treatment together and... No?
Well,
if you've got an idea,
but
you don't feel like writing it, or you don't, not that you don't feel like writing it, but you feel that you'd rather more skilled.
Trying
to say that nicely. But sure, you know, you you wouldn't even attempt a treatment, or I'm sure you
Oh
you
yeah,
do.
no,
but
I would write a treatment, but I just mean at some point. Do you mean get a treatment, put it in for development?
Exactly,
and then yeah, you could totally do that, but sometimes you might want to collaborate on the treatment.
Sometimes you don't get the development.
yeah.
I don't know if I'm leading this conversation
Well-
down an evolutionary kind of dead end,
No,
but I suppose what I'm saying is, I'm not a writer.
Well, you are.
Well,
You wrote one of the shorts I made.
Yeah,
and-
yeah. But I have been, but I'm not at the moment. And what I suppose is that do writers feel threatened by the presence of somebody else in terms of a control of power thing, or is it that so it's essentially a loss of control? Or do they feel spurred on by the idea that another person can invigorate a kind of a project? You know what I mean? And it doesn't. It appears to me, looking around, that doesn't happen a lot in Ireland, or as much as.
Well, do you know, just while you're, because I know what you're talking about, but I think you get more. I hate using the buzzwords, but like you get a unique voice from one person rather than this committee type thing, or even a producer-led project, which is, you know, then you hire someone in. They, you know, even with a brilliant writer, it's still not nearly their voice. I mean, it might be. I suppose if it's a genre project, you might get a pretty solid thing. But what I'm always chasing is the uniqueness. Nearly that can only come from, you know, one person's just obscure view of the world. Do you know?
Yeah.
I don't know if that's not. I'm not pissing on your parade now.
Well, you kind of are.
No, I think you'll find examples of both.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
I think you'll find examples of writers who, like Brendan's talking about, very much feel this is my voice, this is my thing, and how dare you come in and do, you know. And then there'll be other people who will know their limitations, so that you have somebody come in who, like happens in Hollywood a lot of the time, you'll do a comedy pass with somebody who just has a thing for comedy, or you know, and there is that sort of idea of mostly the producer and occasionally the director cooking, almost like what you were talking about. I mean, we need to sprinkle more of pepper, and we need it, whatever. And sometimes that works, and sometimes it's a complete mess.
Complete mess.
Yeah.
As a writer, though, sometimes these sprinkle of pepper and a bit of this is the most upsetting sort of, especially when people aren't really sure what they're saying, or they're giving you, I don't know, the worst thing is the giving you problems, and well, no, actually telling you a problem is good, but telling you how to solve it in their own way is probably the worst. But no, sorry, it's just when you say the sprinkle of pepper, I just know as a writer that it can be soul destroying.
Sure.
This sort of being pulled in different directions.
Yeah.
It's not working. Okay, back this way.
Yeah.
And again, it's I suppose it's the question of good notes versus
Yeah.
co-writing.
Well,
and
that's true, good
editing.
notes.
All three can blur.
Well, isn't there that thing where people say that a writer should know how far you can go on a project? There's that famous case for Blade Runner where Hampton Fancher wrote Blade Runner for like 3 years, and then Ridley Scott said, "But look, I have to make the film, and you're not writing the film I want you to write." So he brought David Peoples in, and eventually got the film made. So I don't know. The only person I've really ever written with is you. So and we've never really argued about the way the direction was the story was going in the script.
Well, I think like because Stephen wrote the original Zombie Bashers thing, and that was one of the few first things I suppose I read it, and I almost imagined I could have written it, if you know what I mean. Like it felt like something that I might have wrote, so therefore I kind of knew how to direct it. I think.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, and I kind of got the idea, like, do you know what I mean? Whereas sometimes, like, I've been sent stuff, and like sometimes when you're sent stuff, you kind of want to do it sometimes just because, like, oh wow, someone thought of me. You know, here's a finished script. This, you know, but you're kind of forcing your own. You know what I mean? You're going to twist it into your own thing, but it's not
you
the
have
right.
to see an in for yourself.
Yeah.
Because forcing yourself.
Yeah, that does. I did that once, like early when I left college or something. You know, where you're just gonna go say yes to anything. And I found if you don't like the thing and then you're trying to force, you know what I mean, your thing on it, then it's just no point in doing it.
It's like anything, if your heart's not really into it, then why are you doing it in the first place?
Yeah.
Money's always good. I do like money.
But I think, like, you know, with stuff like, you know, novels and comic books, and even the writer, that's it. You know what I mean? There's no one else involved. There's no, you don't have a director.
Yeah.
But I think when it comes to directing, you need somebody you need somebody at the helm. You know what I mean?
Yeah, of course.
And I don't know. I just think it happens all the time. But you never really, unless you're you're involved in a project, you never really know what is ultimately happening for the better or the worse. And use the Blade Runner example.
Yeah.
But like even the recent the new Star Wars film they're making, they've replaced Michael Arnott. They got rid of him, and now Lawrence Kasdan and J.J. Abrams are writing it. So we don't know whether they're improving on his script or just throwing it out, or
it happens all the time. I remember there's a famous Kevin Smith wrote the Superman script in '97, and it was a very good script. And then Tim Burton signed on to direct, and then Tim Burton goes, "Well, you've gone as far as you can with the script. I'm going to get my people to write it." And apparently, Kevin Smith was crushed. And I can only imagine as a writer, but as a writer as well, I don't think you can be too precious with something as well. If it's going into the hands of a director who goes, "This is my vision as well." If they're not writing it from the start, so I think you kind of need a bit of leeway for people, because if you become too precious to something, you're never going to get it made because you just keep hugging it until.
And what do you think is the solution in this country? Like, say for example, practically, if you're saying you're kind of exploring this, how do you do it?
I don't know.
Is it the thing, and I'm just going to throw this out there, is it the thing that a lot of people who write films in this country have this notion that I'm going to write this and direct it instead of just letting it go?
I don't know. I've had a good experience recently with Jamie. He's been brilliant. It's I'm just thinking, you're talking about the note, and actually, and I'm on the other side there. I'm giving the notes. But in a way, it's so when it really works, it's when you say something and maybe you're wrong, but you're halfway there, and then it sparks an idea with him, and he's back with, and that's when it's really starting to work.
Yeah.
And I suppose that's what you are aspiring to.
Yeah. When it's fun, sort of, sometimes it's working, and when it's a struggle and you're banging your head off the wall, then it's usually.
Yeah.
Because I remember when we were writing down in Cavan that time, it was just we were just laughing at just silly gags, and basically they made them into the script. We were just general chit chat about.
Script never got made.
Script never got made. But it was fun, because it was a comedy script. We found if we're laughing, other people must find it hilarious. But I think with a writer and another writer working at it, there's no point sitting in a room and having screaming matches and battles, because you're never going to get anything done.
Well, Kipling said that a fish rots from the head down, and so I mean, basically, someone's got to take.
You just let that out.
I just thought producer the minute he said that.
Someone's got to take responsibility, I suppose, and that's the weird thing is that you're looking for full. Creative openness from people, and at the same time you're looking for them to know exactly what it is they want, and to be very stubborn and close-minded at the same time, and it's a schizophrenic approach to things sometimes. But again, I suppose I was just throwing it out there because it's just something that I find interesting, especially from writer-directors as opposed to just writers.
Where do you find the producer fits in the creative process of the script, or is it dependent on project? Or
I think it's completely dependent on project. I mean, the ideal is that you see absolutely from person's previous work what it is that they have, and they come to you and their eyes are evangelical, and they're like there's these lights coming out of their eyes, and they're just bouncing up and down they're just so enthusiastic, and you're just going, great, I just want that. It's you don't have to be bothered, and it's just about trying to help them achieve that. That's the ideal for everybody. And then I suppose there's more complicated projects which are based on previous material, or they might require collaboration between different countries, and some might say for artificial means, but all the same that they are there, and that requires a different skill set completely. And like David Mamet, what was he said? Film is a collaborative business. Now bend over, it's your turn. So, but there is a kind of I just think it's quite interesting. Everyone's talking about soul disciplines and stuff like that, but then you know, you think of bands and you think of other things, and you go, wow, people vibing off one another,
Mm.
and kind of get a bit romantic. You've had these ideas of all these wonderful people in a room just going, yeah, it's this and it's that, and then we all get the chance to kind of share in that at a later stage. There you go. Producer.
Creative
101.
I was going to ask you, actually, just you don't have to name names or anything, but as a producer, have you ever got something in from a writer and you went, I want to do this, and then just because the writer and you had such a disagreement about where it was going, has that ever happened?
No, it hasn't. But I can imagine. To be honest, a lot of the stuff that would kind of evolve is and in Ireland, it's really director based, you know, and so that there's that shorthand that you are looking for what you think you're going to get from the directors out there, you know, and even in terms of writers who might bring ideas, you're always seeing them with a particular director in mind, you know. So it shouldn't really be a surprise. I'm hoping, but sometimes that's
what happens. Yeah.
But I mean, you take a look now at some of the things that are being made, and I know it's people talk about workshopping and developing scripts, and you were saying things aren't really written at the moment, and you kind of go, my God, there's a whole world of creativity out here, and people are able to marshal this, and people are able to collaborate with actors or people in a room or whatever, and it opens up other means to get to the end of the story. And I know, I don't know if you act as well, but I know these two guys, Ciarán and Conor, have acted, and they've got that kind of, you've got that natural thing going on in your heads anyway, you know. And I think that's really interesting as well. That you know, people who have acted or have put themselves, you know what it's about, creating a character and seeing a character in situ.
Yeah, no, I did an acting class for 2 years. Now, not to be an actor, but
we did it as well. Yeah.
Did you? You did the Vinnie Murphy one, was it?
No, we did. Well, Conor did Vinnie Murphy, but we did Rebecca Roper's Black Box. I remember.
Yeah, it was good crack. There were definitely a few moments where you kind of, you hear these phrases straight your career or whatever, and then there's a point where you kind of go, oh, that's what it means or whatever, or that idea of I think a lot of it, I suppose the one thing I learned from the acting class was making the thing fun for the actor as well, or giving them something to do that was interesting, you know what I mean, rather than, I suppose, talking to them for 10 minutes about do you know what I mean? It's what you think when you're in college, you're kind of like, oh, I should really be up there talking to the actor about something, do you know what I mean? I don't know what it is, but I remember the one moment in Vinny's class, and I was like, oh, that was interesting, and because I had to do it, it made sense, I kind of understood why it was more fun. I think it was a scene from Magnolia, and it was the policeman calling around to the girl's house, she's on cocaine or whatever, and he's telling her to turn the music down. But I didn't know what the scene was at the time, it was just the script. And so I was going, alright, I'm a policeman, I'll go in there and I'll be like, oh, turn that music down. I'm a policeman, you know what I mean? And he says to me, I'll do the scene again, but this time you fancy the girl. And it was just suddenly, the whole scene was about something else.
Yeah.
It was you're kind of watching her and you're kind of going, what's going on here? And what I mean is it just opened up this whole other thing. And it was actually, the scene was even a discovery of what was going to happen in the scene. You kind of didn't know what was going to happen now. It's how's she going to react? And so all the dialogue's the same. So to me, it's a bit of that. If you can find those things to just tell the actor, that makes the scene kind of oh, this is going to be fun to do now. I'm gonna figure something out when I do this scene.
Yeah.
Until the sixth take.
yeah.
It's okay.
Well, you can do all that workshopping, and you can do as many takes as you want, as long as you get done in the next 5 minutes.
That's the thing I find. I found hilarious in that when you're in college, or you do sort of courses to do with directing and talking to actors, and there's all these kind of buzzwords, and you talk about play it like this, or what if this happened, and you're sort of psychoanalyzing it, and then you find yourself on set, and it's exactly that, you have 5 minutes to get 4 shots. And that is the reality.
Well, it's where casting comes in, isn't it?
Exactly that. It is all about casting, and allowing a really good actor to get to where you
Well,
need
also-
them to go.
Also, your notes then don't have to be this sort of like. Have
Exactly.
you ever been there where you've got like 5 minutes to go and they're just not doing what you know, and you blank up? I mean, I think it has happened to me in the past, but you just by casting, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, because I think the actor then does what I was talking about there. The actor has done that already. They know the interesting thing to play or whatever. Like it's just
But like I think there are no hard and fast rules when it comes to
No.
you know, especially when you're you know against it time wise to get that performance. Anything goes.
Yeah, and sometimes it's a physical thing. Sometimes it's the way they're blocked in the scene. I'm thinking back, that's actually making the awkwardness. So that you just change it up a tiny bit. I mean, Vinny's one is good, but yeah, I do remember casting someone and for a whole day casting in London, and nobody was doing, and it was very hard to explain what I was looking for. And I remember at the very end of the day, the last person who came in going. Suddenly something in my head went, okay, I said, try playing it as like an 11-year-old girl. And do you remember this? Yeah, and it was that thing, like the character isn't an 11-year-old girl, but it was nearly what I was trying to explain. How I was trying to see it, yeah.
Is that, do directors use the casting process to learn more about their script and learn more about their lines and learn, like it's almost like the casting process is really not just a casting process. It's
do we owe actors script writing?
Well, I have a funny story in that, for me, with Citadel, because it's sort of half based on stuff that happened to me, there was a lot of me in the main character in the script. And, you go with the casting process and then there comes that day when you're on set and you're shaking hands with people that have existed in your head for 5 years, right? And they're telling you, no, Tommy wouldn't do that. He'd do this, and you're like, but I invented you. You do what I want you to do, And then you have to sort of go, don't be silly. Just this person is a professional actor, and you have casted them for a reason. And when you start listening to it, that was when there were some real gems, and sometimes it was about sort of what was not on the page.
Yeah. That's what I find one of the best parts of directing is seeing it change, seeing it evolve on the day with the cast, and in editing. Literally changing sort of dynamics between people.
Yeah. I'm always fascinated with the amount of stuff that ends up on the cutting room floor. Especially dialogue wise.
Yeah.
When you've edited a scene right down to the point where you're going, it's half the size as it used to be, and this is barely getting the points across. And then you go into the edit, and it's told in like 3 looks.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You've got 3 looks from the character, no dialogue, and you're still.
Or it's cut.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly. Yeah. But I mean that I suppose one of the things is like, when else do you have 3 directors around the table you can ask questions? But I mean, directors, and you would have directed between you a lot of films over the last 4 or 5 years, right? But essentially, directors they're probably the people who are on set the least of all the crew members.
Right.
And so, it's kind of a real paradox. You're expected to be the most in charge, and yet you're the least person with the least amount of set time probably than all the people that you collaborate with.
No, unless you're making commercials. But I've heard that one before. But you know what the answer to that is that you're spending time writing it. You're spending time in post production with the music. So you are working a film through. It's not all about set time. You're still learning what you could have done on set when you're, in post production and stuff. So you're actually, you're still working the filmmaking process the whole way through.
Do you mean on a daily basis?
Yeah, I think you're talking about nearly problems that can crop up. If you have a good DOP and a good AD and stuff, the set problems. Okay, you're going to have to make decisions, but
for me that was more something I just envy, because I like being on set.
Well, of course.
And it's sort of something like I know people say worked on my film and I've spent the last 2 years working on sets and just having the same fun and that intense period that a movie is continuing to do and
They might be minding car parks, you know what I mean? No, I mean that they're not necessarily having to struggle with 10 decisions every minute.
Well, I think a film is when a film is in production, it's not just what's on the set. So it's not like you're having a martini sitting there doing nothing. Right? You're working in the morning, then you arrive on set, and for me anyway, I was looking at days when I left set, and you just barely get enough time to sleep, and then you're back at work the next day. But I think what's happening on set before you arrive is usually your wishes, or people are putting together a set that you have. Collaborated with a production designer on or whatever. So I think you are still there. You just don't have to be there physically.
Well, I'm going to ask Conor a question, seeing as he's one of the producers here. I was going to ask this because someone asked me this recently. And he goes, "What's the biggest misconception of a producer?"
That's actually stumped me there. Because
there's so many different. Well, there's so many different types of producers, isn't there?
Yeah.
I suppose we've no soul. And we're the devil. And
that's the biggest.
Misconception is that they do nothing.
Yeah.
So,
no, because someone asked.
So
me
you're right. What can I say? We are. No. I mean, genuine. I suppose is that that we're in. I suppose the biggest misconception or conception, I don't know.
Either way, which one?
Either way, is that producers are driving around in Mercedes-Benz, not doing anything, and telling everyone what to do when they don't know enough to be able to tell people what to do. And also that they occasionally would be a little bit au fait with the truth occasionally. And I that would be one particular thing, but I mean, I'll come back with, Winston Churchill, he always says in war, the truth needs a bodyguard of lies. And the way I see it is that the producer there's a two-way street, Number one, you're absolutely trying to protect the director and the project as much as possible against, on any project, you're going to have multiple funders, all people, very clever people, all entitled to an opinion because they're investing in the film. You're going to have multiple other co-producers probably. You're going to have multiple collaborators in terms of HODs and very talented people, all with tons of experience, and actors. And, serious people. And you've got all this battery of voices and opinions floating around. And the director, the way I see it is that they need to be sometimes protected from all that, or they need to know that there's someone else who's looking after their back when it comes to all this kind of stuff. So that would be one particular thing. But that's if you're lucky enough to be in the position to get the thing made. And most of the time, I think what a producer is trying to do is they're trying to get things off the ground. And they're trying their best, and it's incredibly difficult to kind of do. And it's never easy. And there's awful skullduggery that goes on as well, but it's kind of it's what's required to get things over the line. Sometimes I sound like a mini Machiavelli here. It's the exact opposite. It's just I suppose it'll come down to just trying to be that bodyguard, and trying to get an idea into the club, But there you go.
Well, my favourite analogy is it was James Cameron who said that the director is the accelerator and the producer is the brakes, right? And if you don't have one, you'll crash the car.
Yeah.
And if you don't have the other, you won't get anywhere. So I think that's
a really good one. I'm gonna steal that one now. I'm just the brakes.
No, you can't have that.
The brakes and the Mercedes.
Yeah, in your lovely car.
But it's you could go into that analogy a million times. You could say the producer's getting the fuel. There's so many different parts to the producing. And there's also identifying it's a project. It's like, I'm not saying you're the guardian of what's getting made, but it's a taste thing as well.
There's a subjectivity involved for sure. But I mean, it's really intriguing because when you meet a lot of other producers, you just realise just how like a lot of stuff that I would do now would involve co-productions. That would involve discussing projects, trying to get projects off the ground with people from different cultures, different languages, whatever. But I'm always struck by how intelligent and how clever these people are. You know, a lot of them have huge education and, you know, legally and in terms of financially, and then you realise that like a couple of them might have been very successful actors at an early stage. You know, you just don't know where these people the background springs from, you know, and what they bring to the project. And it's really interesting as well, the way I notice a lot, you know, people talk about hyphenates, you know, the writer director, but the writer director producer is the ultimate hyphenate, isn't it? And you know, there is a sense that, and what I would say definitely in Ireland is that every single working, in my opinion, every single working director in Ireland has at some stage, whether they like it or not, produced, because that's the only way it gets over the ground at the beginning. And so they understand all the decisions and the give and take that has to go on in order to get something over the line. And that to me is a really interesting dynamic that in Ireland, and most directors of shorts or low budget features are, and the big features, everything, they are driving the project. That's the truth.
Yeah, I think you'll find that, like with directors, you know, there's no, I mean, producers aren't clones of each other. You know, everyone has their own working methods. Some producers are brilliant at what they do, some are awful, and I've worked with both. You know, like, you know, and you know, it's the same with directors. It's varied as personality itself. You know. So.
Yeah.
Do you hear that? You know, it's a necessary evil. Do you know what I mean? Or it's the best friend that you can ever have. You know, it comes at it. Like, obviously I'm passionate about producing and what I can bring to the table, but it's utterly chicken and egg. You know, it's you know, which comes first.
Yeah. Well, here's another question I've always wanted to ask producer. Did you always want to be a producer, or did you go into film school and go,
well,
I want to be a director, and you kind of fell into it?
Again, I tell this story privately, so I'll just tell it publicly.
To the millions of listeners.
To the millions of listeners to the podcast that I picked up. But my first day in film school, I knew so little about what producers and directors really did. I was sure that I got accepted in Dunleary College as a director. So I turned up for the degree year with those 12 people, and Anne O'Leary, who was running the course, came in and said, put up your hands, who's the directors? And
she asked us to go around the table and say what your name and what you're doing. And there's like 3 of each generally, and there was 3 directors there. And Conor went, yeah, I'm a director. And I remember everyone, and Anne and everyone just looking at each other. And after the meeting saying, hey Conor, come down to the office.
And that's when I became a producer.
And funny enough, he was the only producer in the class for 3 directors.
So that was my introduction to producing. There you go.
That's quite interesting. That's just interesting, because like I was a producer for a short in Paddyfermot, and I absolutely hated it. It was just like the director was nuts. He didn't know what he was doing, and we gave him we did bag packing in Tesco just to fund the film, and he just spent the money in the first day. And I went, maybe I'm not cut out for producing. So I just always wonder, like, how do people kind of fall into it? Or
I mean, I must say, what I didn't realize how much fun producing could be later on. And
as opposed to when you're making shorts, when it's a grind,
literally wiping bottoms, you know.
Yeah. No, but I see it now. I see the development. Like now, when it gets into that sort of big boy thing of trying to finance, there is a lot of socializing, for want of a better word.
Yeah. Yes,
but it is. It's a very social sort of.
Yeah, it is. It's completely based on trusted people that you're going to go into partnerships on, and what better way than find out about what people are like. But I do find as well that we're you know, filmmaking is, you know, there's people who come up with ideas, and then there's the craft of writing, and then there's the craft of directing, and each other crafts directly, and people do ask that question most: what does the producer do? which is intriguing, and I always find a kind of a way, you know. It's something that's kind of very much but behind the scenes, maybe sometimes. There you go. And yeah, there you are.
There you go. Good. And just in terms of financing films at present, I know everyone always talks about, and it's really kind of a boring thing, we're doing the economic downturn, but do you think the financing of films has changed because of that, or it's still the same?
I have quite a strong opinion on this, and
Sure.
it's that you know, at the end of the day, an idea can be quantified, and that idea, it's a simple equation. You know, however much something costs should reflect some sort of a market value, and whichever way you go, even like I'm a massive fan of Bellatar and Rackmeister Harmony is one of my favourite films ever. But I can tell you, if you go throughout the entire world, you will find someone somewhere in some sales agent office has worked out there's X amount of Bellatar fans, and based on the fact of what he's done, and you know what? His film can support that level of audience, whatever. And there's something, what annoys me is that that's sometimes seen as a bad thing, trying to evaluate from a market perspective what your market actually is. It's like, the suits, man, they're coming down the road to take you away, you know what I mean? They're gonna, it's like, you know, they're like, oh, don't talk about money, man.
Killing my buzz.
You're killing my buzz.
But even on the other extreme end of the Bellatar would be like, you know, like the Asylum, like where, I mean, they've never lost money on a film, and it's literally like they've figured out that almost by the poster and the trailer that they can sell to Netflix and all these different things. So they have the whole thing is set up. The Asylum, they do like Sharknado.
Oh, of course, I was reading an article about they do the yeah.
But
like, I mean, to me, that's just like, I mean, nobody kind of tuts at you if you want to set up some kind of shop or something and sell whatever.
Sure, yeah.
But it's almost like, you know, that'll be looked down on. Like, do you know what I mean? How can you be making that crap? Like, whatever. Like, no, if it's a business and you're making money, why not?
Exactly. But I suppose coming back then, like the traditional route at the moment for funding films in Ireland mostly is through co-production, and there's various different levels, and there's relationships with producers, and there's a relative kind of system. But, and this is the big thing, the truth is that the moment you go above quite a small figure, it becomes cast dependent in terms of how people can really quantify a project and how they can market it and how they can sell it, and it's a tremendous weight on top of every director. It's a tremendous weight on every producer. It's a tremendous weight on every sales agent, and I'm sure the actors don't want this situation as well. Like half the world is full of
You sure the actors don't want that?
No, but brilliant unemployed actors. You know what I mean?
Oh,
it's
yeah.
It's a kind of reality. So it's sometimes you step out beyond a certain amount, and it's ridiculous. You know, there's no rules. You know what I mean? Trying to get things done, but below that there is some sort of a route, and it's also an interesting thing on directors. And I know each director here has been involved in co-production, and you think it's tough enough making a film at the best of times, but the idea that you are factoring in different cultures, different crew members, switching halfway through, you know, post-production in different countries, it sounds quite easy to say, but in reality it's like
top trumps.
Each top trumps, yeah, as we were saying, but even more in practice, I can only imagine it is that you're starting your first day at work 20 times in a row. One other job in the entire world to be able to keep a kind of a path, a real direction, but at the same time everything's changing around you, and you're just expected to make everybody fit naturally into that way. So there's certain types I think it's an amazing kind of personality or skill that directors have managed to take on now, because they have to be able to do it. That's they have to, because if they can't, God bless them, you know.
Cool. Just another question I was going to ask is for the directors, obviously, is have you ever worked on a project for so long where you just said, at the point, I don't want to do this anymore, I'm sick of working on this and I want to run away from it? Because I know from Stitches you were working on a good while, Citadel was a good couple of years. Have you ever just said, I just want to do something else, I just don't want to do this, keep working on it?
Well, I kind of, It's more that you reach a stage where you wonder whether will it ever get made. You know, and you know, for me it was like, you know, I'd finished a short called The Fairies of Blackheath Woods, and I started working on Citadel, you know, and it was like, you know, I was 26, and I was like, you know, even at that stage, you know, you're out of college, whatever it was, 3 years, 4 years, and you're starting to feel the wolf at the door, you know, and it's like, I'm not making any money, and you need something to happen really, really quickly. And I was looking at Crystal Ball after Fairies and see that it would be 6 years before Citadel was released. I don't know whether I'd go through. You know, it's.
Yeah, you would.
You know, I probably would, but you know, it reaches a point where you're like, you know, if I was 26 then, when you're 28, 29, and all your peers seem to be making a living, you know, and they're sort of starting families, or they're doing this and they're doing that, and it seems you don't know whether you're just going to be this fool, you know, at 36, saying I want to be making this film, you know, and it's the same film you've been developing in 10 years, or, you know, it's like when does this end? Where do I draw a line and kind of get a real job, quote unquote, you know? And it's like that crosses your mind, and it's always it'll be 6 months time, it'll be 6 months time, it'll be 6 months time, and then suddenly, you know, 5 years have gone, and that's quite testing. You know, that was my 20s. You know,
of course.
I mean, that's the thing. No one says no.
Yeah.
You know, no one will ever really say no to a director in terms of trying to discourage them.
Yeah. Completely. I mean, you get into bed with different financiers, and they want their 2 cents worth on the script, and then you spend time doing that, and then you put it out there for them to read it, but they're at some festival and they'll be back in 6 weeks time, and then they get back and so has read it, but we need the co-partner to read it, and he's on holidays in the Maldives, and you know, all this kind of shit, and then, you know, finally they'll read it like 2 months later, and we're not sure, you know, and suddenly you're back on the road again. So I've never sort of abandoned a project per se. It's more just the process of trying to.
We were talking about before, we call it the curling up on the sofa kind of thing, and just going, I don't know what to do. Completely. You know, so it's.
But do you completely lose it, or because I know we had a TV series years ago, and we still haven't forgotten about it. It's like it never dies. It's there. I don't know.
Well, what was the experience on Savage? Was it a long process getting that made, or?
No, not really.
Was it straight out? So that's the complete opposite.
It was difficult. It went through one round of development, and then I think the Catalyst came along, and we entered in the Catalyst. And I think that was probably, you know, the Catalyst seemed to start everything going. Not just the Catalyst projects. They were looking at. But also because we didn't get the Catalyst, I think we probably just went, right, we're going to make it. Like, we were going to make it for whatever we had, you know.
Yeah.
Don't know what 30,000 or whatever, you know, I'm just trying to figure out, but we were going to make it for anything. I think it had got to the stage where we were talking, where you either you do something or you
don't.
Yeah, but it's not just that project, it's nearly like where you're talking about career. It's like, okay, you either make something now, you've made 9-10 shorts. What are you going to do?
Well, again, I know this. I'm the producer here, but it is like, how do you know Ciarán until you see what Ciarán has done in the feature? And it's this, you know, it's so hard because you know the debut feature is the hardest thing to get over.
But you held out for the sort of, and I'm not saying it was a big budget, but you held out for it was a reasonable budget compared to Savage. You know, it was
1.2.
Yeah, with co-productions probably ends up being the equivalent of Savage, you know, because there's so much. But it is. Well, I suppose it's.
But you're still holding out because you're holding out for all those complications that you're talking about. We had none of that.
Well, one of the things is that I think, you know, everybody, like we call it the plinth. You know, a director is doing lots of short films and lots of spec scripts and stuff like that, and they're basically building this colossal plinth. But the feature has to be the thing that goes on top of it. So the plinth is getting higher and higher and higher, and it's this amazing plinth, you know, it's the most beautiful mahogany plinth, it's wonderful, but still nothing to put on top of it, it's just getting bigger and bigger and more ornate. And you know, God bless directors, but they have to put something up on the top of the plinth at a certain point, you know, and it's a huge investment and risk, you know.
Yeah.
But
absolutely. I mean, there's got to be people out there who, you know, were in my scenario whose movie never got made.
Completely.
You know, and
Did you see the thing on Stephen Fellows, where he did this breakdown of how many directors have made a second and third
I saw that
film? Did you see
online,
this?
yeah.
So that was quite frightening reading it.
It was like someone who made a film under 500,000, their first feature they only made.
There's like 3%, or like if you're talking about making a third or fourth, or like even a second, I think it's down to 3% of or is it 3? Maybe I got that wrong.
well, the only kind of slight flaw in it, it was talking specifically in place, so it didn't really account for directors who made their first film under 500 grand and then
made another one.
You know what I mean?
Okay.
Didn't include that.
Okay.
Just, you know, in situ.
Oh, right.
So, I mean, that would be, well, certainly would be my idea, would be to make bigger movies, and they're not going to happen here. You know.
Yeah, you have to move.
Well, what about yourself, Conor? Like, I remember because you kind of did Zombie Bashers between Dead Meat and Stitches, and I remember you put Stitches for ages.
Because I suppose I made that film when
I made another film in between though.
Yeah. Well, like I made the first one when I came into college, so that was like the year after or something like that. And like in my head, I was going, okay, and then I'll do the film the next year, and then I'll do one the next year. And I remember being at a party with somebody, and they said to me, "You're not going to make your next film until you're 27," or something. They said to me, and I was like, "How did they know? I'm going to be, you know, I'm already writing the next one. I'm going to be churning these out." And then suddenly, like, you know, 7, 8 years later, like, you know. Because, yeah, it's the same thing happened, like writing something for a year, got development, then didn't get production finance, then writing something else, do you know what I mean? Then, do you know what I mean? And then you can sometimes, well, and it's probably, like I heard some good advice about if you want to make films, it's sometimes, or if you want to, it's succeed at anything, it's like, they say get in line and stay in line, and that's how you work your way to the top. And sometimes if you can sometimes divert into other things. Like I went off and I said, I'll do corporate videos for a while because I need to do that, and that'll. But I did that for about 4 years, and then it was almost like I said, no, I got to get back in line here. You know what I mean? And,
yeah, it's a distraction, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, and people then don't think of you as. Do you know what I mean? You wouldn't come into someone's head to send a script as like because you're off doing other stuff. You know what I mean?
It's hard because I mean I did that for a little while. To literally to eat,
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it was like, you know, it gets to the point where most, you know, I mean, myself and Conor were in class together in college, and the majority of people that I saw around me in the other years, and certainly people who were succeeding in film, were either there through the fact they were independently wealthy, or through nepotism. You know, and I had neither. You know, I had, none of my family or friends came from filmmaking. It was entirely alien on the first sort of venture into that arena, and I certainly wasn't independently wealthy. It was the complete opposite. You know, so it's really hard to sort of stay in line.
Yeah.
You know, if that line isn't putting pennies in your pocket.